The main motivation for doing the work I do is to create fulfilling workplaces where people are fully engaged. In this video, I want to have a look at what is the state of engagement and why is it maybe lower than we want it to be. So I start out with a question for you to quickly ponder, and that is, what do you think is the percentage of people in Europe who are engaged at work? There is a company called Gallup, and they do a survey each year to measure this, and they've done this since 2000. So they've got quite some data by now, and each year I'm shocked at the number, even though I kind of know what to expect by now. The answer is, in Europe, the number of engaged people at work is 13%. And there's 72% who are not engaged, and 16% of people who are actively disengaged. So what does that mean? First of all, Gallup defines engagement as the involvement and enthusiasm that employees have both for their work and their workplace. And not engaged means they have a lack of motivation and are less likely to invest effort out of their own free will for the organizational goals and outcomes. And actively disengaged means they're actually unhappy and unproductive, and they're also likely to spread negativity to their coworkers. So those are the 16%. And then you can have a look at, well, what does that mean for the business? What's the cost of that, right? Or the effect in the first place. And so Gallup has done meta studies on all the data they've collected, and they have compared the top quarter of business units to the bottom quarter of business units in terms of engagement and how they differ. And here are some of the things that they found. There's more, but those are for me the most striking ones. So the top quarter is 23% more profitable than the bottom quarter. They also have 10% more customer loyalty. They show 22% more in active participation in what's going on in the company. They have 68% higher well-being. They produce 30% less defects. They have 51% lower turnover, so people don't leave the company because they're obviously happy there. And they have 78% days less of not being at work for sickness or other reasons. So when you add all that up, you can actually calculate what the cost of that is. And so here's the formula that Gallup then uses. It's the number of employees you have times the 16% of average disengaged people or actively disengaged people, your median salary that you can fill out for your own company, and here comes the cost times 34%. That is the increased cost that someone who's actively disengaged is costing you more in an annual salary. So they basically cost you a third of their annual salary on top of what you already pay them. So I listed a few examples here for example company sizes. So if you have 50 employees, that means that costs you about 190K per year in additional salaries that you're paying. And then you can see the numbers as they go up, and they grow pretty quickly to a substantial amount. So that should be the motivation why it's worth investing into doing something about this. And I can already anticipate the thought in your head that you're having right now, and that is probably, well, that's average, but we're probably above average. And the reason I know that many of you will have this thought is that that's a known cognitive bias. It's called the above average effect. Very famously shown several times when people asked if they think they're above average drivers, because 70 to 90% of people tend to say, yes, I'm an above average driver. And we probably all know enough math to know that that's impossible. So you're probably tricking yourself the same way right now. It's probably fair to say if you're not actively doing something for increasing engagement with your employees, you're probably not above average, but more likely below the average. So why is this happening? Here's my theory why this turns out this way. And I want to take you through this journey to understand why this is happening from my perspective. So a company usually starts out by a few founders come together, having an idea and starting a company, right? So here I just illustrated two of them. So they start out, they are the entire company, which is the circle around them. And if things go well, they hire a few first employees, and they have close connections to all of these, and things go pretty smoothly, usually in the beginning. And if things go well, they hire some more people, and it's starting to get a bit more stressful. Like the founders start having trouble having close connections to everyone, communicating well to everyone, really getting across what they want, and they're starting to maybe sleep less well at night because there's too many things going on, or rather more things going on in the company than they can fully control. And that is normal. Like, that is a completely normal thing to happen. That's just about group dynamics and sociology. Starting from certain group size, you just can't have close ties to everyone anymore. And then what's happening usually around the size of 25 to 75 people is that things start breaking down. Like there's a crack in the company. Things usually fall through this crack and things don't go well at some point. And the founders really start freaking out because they feel like they're losing control. And in some way, that is exactly what is happening. They're losing direct influence to everyone in the company. And also the people in the company lose that direct connection to them. So for them now, it's just a job. Like, whereas the first people who joined, they really got to know the founders and why this is important to them. And that rubs off. So they are more engaged. And the more and more people you hire, naturally, the less engaged those people are. For them, it's actually maybe just a 9-to-5 job. And when they go home, they don't want to think about work. But even though this is completely normal, there is something you can do to work against this. It doesn't have to be this way. So what usually happens then is the founders look around and say, well, what do we do? How do we regain control here? And the go-to strategy for companies reaching a certain size is to introduce hierarchy. And this is then what they do. So they usually split up their company in different functions of, this is sales, this is marketing, this is design, this is maybe software development, whatever they need to have in their value chain. And then they just appoint someone being the manager or leader of this particular function. And then they interact with those managers, and the managers pass on information and decisions to the people they lead. And this is then where even more disengagement is happening, because you introduce actual formal barriers or communication channels through other people. And so a lot of people then at the very least start to disengage, because from now on it's really just a job for them and no longer necessarily. It doesn't have to be that way, but often not, oh, I'm doing this because I'm part of something bigger, a bigger mission I want to achieve with this company. And then as the company grows further, you introduce more and more of those, maybe another layer of hierarchy, and soon enough, the founders also actually experience this disengagement because they're now suddenly part of the company that they never wanted in that way. They don't feel engaged in their own company anymore because they actually lost connection with the people they work with. They are now just managing other managers. They're no longer actually working on the things that are important for the company necessarily, or to achieve the company's mission, at least. So they experience that disengagement themselves, and soon enough, everyone's disengaged. Eventually, the founders leave, and they found someone else to take over a CEO role, and then it's just yet another company with no one's heart in. So, why are they doing that? Why would anyone do this? And the reason is they're afraid of this happening. Like if they just keep going, growing organically without introducing any structure and process, more and more cracks will show up, and eventually they run into burnout, and one of them can't take it anymore, has to go and leave, or whatever is happening, right? But they know it can't go on like this, or things will start breaking down. So this is what they're afraid of. That is why they're going down the route of hierarchy, because they don't know of any, often they don't know of any other option. And here's another graph. This time it's from Bamboo HR, and they don't measure engagement as such. They measure ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score, which is different question, but basically the question for ENPS is, would you recommend this place to work to a friend? And then you rate it from 0 to 10. So it's not exactly the questions that Gallup uses to measure engagement, but I think they're correlated, right? They measure kind of the same thing. Am I bought into this company? And the interesting thing here is actually the different colors or different company sizes and how they relate to each other. So here they actually want to show the effects of COVID and remote work. But what I find most interesting in this graph is that pretty clearly, the smaller the company, the higher the ENPS is, and the bigger the company, the lower it is. So it seems to me that this also shows that it's a natural occurrence that with the size of the company, that engagement of people naturally goes down. Or at least this is what will be happening if you just go down the standard route of how companies work. So if you want high engagement, you need to do something different than most other companies are doing. And so the follow-up question is, of course, well, what do you need to do to prevent this? And I'm going to record another video for that. I'm going to link it in this one. It's going to show up somewhere here. But that's it for this video. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being an ally in creating fulfilling workplaces. I'm Manuel from New Work by Design. You can find everything I do on my website.